comply with the? What SOP? What does comply mean? How many times, what percentage is acceptable or not acceptable? These are the things. First of all, I don't accept the KPI. I don't accept the KPI. First of all, if you're not conform to SOP, then your behavior is not right. Discipline is not right. And accountable is not right. And honesty is not right. So you can't get full marks there, right? First of all. Which one? SOPs?
Which part is compared to
yeah, but if you're not complying to SOPs, then basically you're going around rules and regulation. That should be visible, observable. What are you doing? Ignoring the SOPs? That's a discussion that should happen. So it's already at the behavioral level, it's already traceable. And then also at the KPI result. But complying to SOP is a very poor KPI. It doesn't make sense. Because you can argue, what SOP? Which one? ISO 9000? Which part of it? The first part of it? The second part of it? Yeah. How is it measured? How is it validated?
Doing it, somebody to check whether the KPI and set is relevant. Doing something like that.
And this is, yeah, and that's a good point. That's a very valid point. Let's go back to way back to the beginning. But you know, the thing is that this system relies on people thinking. Okay, here we are. So basically, you turn around and say the KPI is irrelevant, or my boss and I have written a really nice KPI, but it has nothing to do with anything. You're intelligent people. You know what's going on. You know what's important, not important. Why write a bogus KPI? It doesn't make sense to me, right? It shouldn't make sense to you. Now, it might be that you think, oh, we did the best job possible and we wrote down a KPI we thought was good, but it doesn't really fit, right? That's where ultimately, the first couple of times this is done, the HODs need to be looking at these, making sure that the flow is correct. If I'm an HOD, I want to see these. It's extra work, but at least we know what's going on. And if everyone in my department has really weird KPIs that don't match this, then I have a problem in my department that I need to address. There's some communication, something's wrong as it goes down into the organization. We need to fix that. So that's why documentation is super important, because you start seeing trends, you start seeing details. And you can address documentation. You cannot address gossip. You cannot address rumors or perceptions. When it's written down, it means something. You know, sorry to say, there are all these pages you need to fill out. It's intensive, but it's useful. And over time, you'll see these pages diminish, the number of pages, because you get better at it, because the organization knows what it's doing. And so therefore, there's confidence built in. You don't need honesty anymore, because everyone is honest and we know what that means, et cetera, et cetera.
So basically, who are supposed to oversee, which means to ensure all the division, for example, the KPI set up must be increased markedly.
You have the benefit, and it's a real benefit, that you have in Dr. Shukri's office or department, you have Mazdi doing KPIs. So internally, you have somebody doing KPIs in the department. That's cool. That's very, very helpful. Yeah, so basically, if you have any question, sit down with him, he knows. He has the best feel for it in the organization. And I spent time with him, he's good. So he's you know, you're not fiddling with low quality. But it's not an easy job. And I don't envy his job. So yes, you can go to them.
Must be maybe said.
Exactly, yeah. And that's a conversation you can have, right? And the noise level goes up again. That's good. We want noise. Okay? Why is this not working? Any other questions that we can have on these forms? So KPI said, one more thing about this, because we've talked about this a lot this morning, right? We argue, and it's in the forms to be filled out, we argue about the thing that if you look in the literature and the information out there, they always talk about SMART KPIs. SMART KPIs stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time. And we have a problem with that. That's not good enough. So we use what's called Be Smart. Here's an example of a SMART KPI. This is the SMART KPI. I need to create 12 audit reports every quarter, right? So it's specific to 12 audit reports. It's measurable. Did I create them or not? 11 is too few, 13 is too many. Is it actionable? Yeah, I can do that. Is it realistic? I think so. I think I can do 12 every quarter. And is it timed? Yes, it's every quarter. So this is a SMART KPI. Sorry? Why 12? And so what? So basically, okay, I have this job, I need to do the audit reports. It comes back to your question earlier, right? How can I make this KPI into something that's really significant, that means something for the organization? Well, these audit reports go someplace, right? And in this particular case, they probably go to the enforcement team, okay? So therefore, I will generate 12 reports a quarter that have a satisfaction index of 95% for the enforcement team to who this report goes. So you now need a new measurement. And you need to sit down with the enforcement team and to figure out what does the satisfaction index mean? What are the criteria for satisfaction? And you agree upon that. And that becomes your 100%. And if it's below that, then it becomes 95%. And to be sure, if you're generating 12 audit reports every quarter, which is times 4 is 48 reports a year, there are going to be problems. Given. That's why we only have to 95%, not 100%. If there's a problem with any of the reports that come back to me, I have 3 days to answer it. I must answer it in 3 days. Why? Because the enforcement team depends on this, right? So if I'm going to sit on it for 3 months and not do anything, it's not helpful. So this KPI is what we call a Be Smart KPI. Yes, we're going to generate the same amount of reports in the same amount of time, but it has a quality associated with it, and it has, if something goes wrong, how do I resolve it? How do I address it? It has a problem resolution solution in it. And what would be really nice to do is not only to sit down with the enforcement team and figure out what are the quality issues that I need to make sure happen, but more importantly, how many days do I need to, if a problem occurs, how many days do I need to resolve it? And if it's an unrealistic number, you have to be able to justify it's an unrealistic number, unfortunately. I can't do it in 3 days. I can't do it because X, Y, Z. And they come back to you and say, okay, I understand that, but how can we, and you'll come up with a negotiated number. That becomes your KPI. This is a strong KPI. This KPI will allow your organization to move forward. This one is keeping busy. See what I mean? But to do that, you need to sit down with the people that you're supplying the audit, the reports, the rules, whatever it is. Talk to them. They're people like you. They work for the same organization. They have the same objectives. They're trying to do the same things than you are. They're not the enemy within. They're friends. They're there, you work together, you mutually have confidence in each other, the trust builds now because I'm generating reports that they want, that they appreciate. Therefore, they start trusting me. This This is enormous. But you have to generate new data. That data is indexed. That data is also, I'm going to be addressing these issues X amount of times. So you have to measure that too. But this is self-measurement, particularly the 2-day one. The 95% index, you have to sit down with that person who's receiving it and agree upon what are the conditions for that report to be validated and have this 100% satisfaction. And it doesn't have to be like, page 2, you have to have an index, and that index must be, and da-da-da-da. You don't need to that level of detail. But certainly the level of quality of the report. What makes a quality report? Yeah? It's very quiet. Either you're reflecting, which is good, or you're totally confused, which is not good. I'm not explaining properly. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. I agree. Yeah. I agree. Okay, there normally is 80-20 to begin with. So you actually went higher on the behaviors. You went to 30%. As I said, very, very developed organizations have almost all behavior. Like Microsoft is almost 100%. They've given up on KPIs since what's his name, the Indian fellow, is taking over, CEO. Yeah, no, the one in the one in Microsoft. He's changed Microsoft completely. Microsoft used to be 100% KPI driven, and it was because basically KPIs were preventing them from being innovative. So they did away with KPIs, and they brought in only behaviors. Behaviors, they're all about productivity, they're all about innovation, and about development. It's a learning organization. To be fair, you are at the early stages. Therefore, you need to use a system that is in tune with where you are. So we cannot use off-lot, for example, because off-lot is fairly well developed. Singapore doesn't have an awful lot to offer because they're super developed. So yeah, we can look at them, but we didn't use them as like blueprint, right? We didn't use their blueprint 100%. We looked at them, and they're doing things, they've integrated their water into all of their ministry. Right? It's like you're a civil servant if you are in the water in Singapore. You guys, yes, you're a semi-civil servant, but not quite, right? You're different. And that's perfectly acceptable. That's not an issue. You're closer to the Canadian waters because every province in Canada has its own water company. And in your case, and in Malaysia, every single state has its own system. And you're trying to coordinate all of that.
Because I really, what I'm saying is because not only can measure sometimes we can measure the efficiency, but we can't measure the effectiveness of the all these that is why I say what productivity said maybe should be more than that because they feel very
It's important.
Or the regular factors.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, 30%, when you haven't measured it before, 30% is a big number. It really is. If it was 5% or 10%, it wouldn't make any difference. But 30% it has an impact. Anything above 20% has an impact. And normally before, that's why I say, normally when we start this, we say 20% because you have to get used to seeing that behavior. You have to get confidence in the system and that it works and that it's effective. And then you can use it to go up. Because initially it's like, behavior is very, very contentious. Because we talk about observable behavior. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Everyone has the same. Yeah. Otherwise it's not a fair system.
Yeah, we because on the
direct HODs are at a higher level, right? So they have to not only ensure that the divisions happen, but also that everything else works. So that within that 70% is already embedded certain behaviors that they have to display. And that's just reinforced by the behavioral components. They mutually work together. They link, right? They link. Yeah, but then it's like, well, why, right? There has to have a fundamental reason. But make it equal for everyone. Everyone is playing by the same rules. Everyone is being treated the same way. At a different level, but everyone is consistent. Everyone knows it's 30-70. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, I'm not executive, I have to then therefore keep count. That doesn't. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Something I was going to say and I completely forgot. In any case, any other questions? Comments? You haven't seen this happen before. I can guarantee you it's tough. So what's going to happen is that basically in July, one would expect that you get the KPIs in order. Right? So you probably get initial KPIs now, around the April time. And then you'll start working on it for 2-3 months. And then July you have the midterm review. And then for the next 6 months, you really can start applying it. So look at 2020 as the year of learning, the year of applying. This is the test case. Because in 2021, it's a full cycle. 2021, at the end of 2021 is the earliest that we would say bring in pay for performance. But it might even take a second cycle. It might even take a second cycle because it's just, you are not in an easy industry. The regulator industry, and particularly SPAN, you do not have an easy task. So we have to be realistic in what can be done. You don't have a profit motive, but you kind of sort of do. It's hard. I've never seen an organization like yours that has that many stakeholders. And every single one's in competition with the other, right? They're all in disagreement. I want this, don't give them that, right? Oh. So you're supposed to arbitrate all that? So you have a very wide, sorry to use the word, but wide span of control. And a lot of things you don't have direct under control, you have to do by begging, borrowing, stealing, you know, whatever you need to do to get them to do what they need to do. It's not easy to understand that. But if you can work together, you can get things happening. Right? So these are all examples of typical KPIs that we've seen that basically are not helpful. They get you into trouble. I was going to say KPIs, you basically want to leave them for amount of time. Yeah, do check how you're doing versus target, etc., and keep that conversation going. But behaviors is a daily activity. So if you see something that's inappropriate, particularly if you're an executive, you need to address it then. You don't wait until 6 months from now to talk about a behavioral issue. For example, in July, you don't turn around and say, hey, on March 12th, I saw you behave this way. That was 4 months ago. I don't remember it, right? This has no connection to reality. Why are you accusing me? And it becomes immediately an issue. So if you see it, mention it. If you see a colleague that is not doing what it needs to be doing in terms of discipline or accountability, talk to him. It's okay. It's not that you're going to walk around pointing out everything that goes wrong. You know when something is not right and it needs to be addressed. And this is also true very much of the executives who have subordinates. If you see an issue, talk about it right then and there. The famous take them out for a coffee, as they're doing with the fintech, you know? Anything, talk. It doesn't have to be confrontational. A lot of times it's just a slight adjustment. Don't wait until the job performance review to do it. In behavior. The job performance review is therefore what happens if you do that way. At the end of it, they already know. We've had this conversation 3 times now. It's about honesty, or let's say discipline. It's about discipline. It's about your, following the rules and regulations. What do we need to do to improve? I can't give you a 3 this time. It will have to be a 2. Do you agree with that? We've talked about this 4 times. If you never talked about it before, then you deserve a 2. Right? So all of this builds, all of this builds. But KPIs, please don't talk KPIs every day. It's not useful. You end up going to sleep. Oh, my KPI is 2%, 3%. What are you watching this for? It's like my wife, she weighs herself every day. It's like, what for? So you're up, you're down, so what? Over the year, it's not going to change, so leave it. Don't worry about it. Talk about it midterm. Don't talk about it all the time. Done that? Okay. Where's that? 12:40. Okay, so we'll after the break. We have to work pretty quickly. We have 3 role plays to do after the break. We typically kind of run out of time. So I would ask you, can we come back at 1:30? Is that too soon? I know for those of you who go 1:45? Can we do 1:45? Please, let's start at 1:45 because we have a lot to do in a short period of time. We want to finish at 4:30 as we've agreed. So let's try to, I don't want to push you into 5 o'clock and your kids are waiting for you at school and things like this. So let's be back here at 1:45 when we start, yeah? Thank you very much. Good conversation at the end. Thank you. I was getting nervous. There were no questions. Now there are. Very good. Thank you. See you at 1:45. What we're going to do now is we're going to actually start, because the difficulty is in the negotiations and in the conflict. And so that's what we're going to take the afternoon for. And we're actually going to practice this. We're going to practice behaviors and we're going to practice discussion. And we do this for what's called a role play. Okay? Role plays basically is the following. There is a boss and there is the employee and then there's an observer. So you'll be doing this exercise with 3 people. And we do 3 rounds, so each time you change. For one time you're an observer, one time you're the boss, the other time, last time you were the employee. So everyone gets a chance to be the boss, everyone gets a chance to be the employee, and everyone gets a chance to observe. Right? That's important. So you change each time. Some of the elements, you have it on your table in front of you, you have basically this now, just distributed. If you don't have one, I'll give you this. There are 3 pages. The first 3 pages are these 3. The first one says supervisor, the next one says employee, and the next one says observer. Do you have? Do you have that? You don't have? No. Sorry, I thought I'd give you. Is anyone else missing? Missing? The 3 of you? No. Okay, so those are the things that we're going to use for preparation. So these we'll be using. Right? The way this does is that you then have scenario A. Scenario A is Anwar. And Anwar we have in English and in Bahasa. Wow. Very sophisticated. Ellie did the translations. So I think it's okay. I don't know. But basically, what happens is that the first 2 pages of the role play is English and then Bahasa for Anwar, and then the next 2 pages are the boss. And the first 2 pages are the boss. The next 2 pages are Anwar, and the last 2 pages, 3 pages are the observer. So what happens is that if you are the boss, you only read the boss script. Do not look at Anwar's script. If you are Anwar, you only read the Anwar script, not the boss's script. And if you're the observer, you read both. So you understand the story from both sides. What happens is that if you are the boss, you read your boss script, and And then you fill in the first page, the supervisor script. If you are the employee, if you are Anwar this time around, you fill in the employee script. And if you're the observer, you hold on to filling anything out until they start talking. Once Anwar and his or her boss starts talking, you start filling this out because you're observing their behaviors. The reason why we give you these sheets as the boss and as the employee, these first two sheets, these are important meetings. And therefore you should prepare for them. So these are great ways of thinking about how do I prepare for my job performance review. So these will help you, guide you in thinking about the arguments that you can use and you can use as negotiation for when you go into your boss. Same for the boss. The boss can get ready for the conflict that he or she may have with Anwar. It's important that you do, when you go into a job performance review, that you are going prepared. That you've thought through what you want to say, that you think through what they probably want to say to you in return, and if you disagree with them, how would you handle that disagreement? Prepare yourself mentally. Do not go into a job performance review unprepared. I tell the boss, I'm here, okay, let's sit down, let's do it. This is your career, it's your job. It's ultimately going to be your bonuses. So be prepared. That's important. That's why in this exercise we ask you to fill out these forms so you get into the habit of getting ready for the discussion. Okay, any questions so far? So this time around, everyone's in teams of 3. If you could join these two gentlemen, all by yourself. What happened to you? Have you sent your colleagues home? But you have 2 more, right? Okay. They're going to come?
They went prayers.
Okay, here's number 1. Very good. So, and you could tell the other 2 gentlemen who've not been here if you can do it. Okay? So basically, boss, so you decide, in teams of 3, you decide who's the boss, who's the employee, who's the observer, this time round, and that's what you go with. Okay? And if you're the boss, prepare the script. If you're Anwar, prepare the script, and then when you're ready, when Anwar's ready, when the boss is ready, start talking. It's important because you do a debrief. So in your discussion, I want you to agree on a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? On a ranking. Yes, most of these are midterms and all that. They shouldn't be talking about a ranking, but we need a ranking in order to have a discussion. So we're changing reality a little bit by saying, hey, please give me a number. Does Anwar get a 1? Does Anwar get a 2? Does Anwar get a 3? Does Anwar get a 4? And try to make sure that the boss and Anwar agree with that ranking. Okay? And we'll use that as a discussion. One more thing. These role plays, Anwar, John, and Farhana, are taken from Spain, but they're not specific to somebody. They didn't really have, Anwar is a fiction. So please don't look for Anwar. You wouldn't have said that. I know Anwar. There is no Anwar. There is no Anwar. The other thing is that try to stay in your character. If you're the boss, you have a script. Stick to the script. Don't make something up. So it gets really confusing. Okay? That's the other thing. Any comments or questions? Are you ready? Okay. Start. So Anwar start meeting. Start meeting. And
dan juga dia mempunyai masalah-masalah disiplin yang lain. So daripada situ kita tak setujulah. Ya, memang betul. Untuk maintainkan dia punya KPI. So sebab tu kita bagi 3 dekat dia. Sebab dia tak boleh nak maintain dia punya kerja disiplin dan accountability. Sebab itulah kita bagi dia 3. Sepatutnya bila kita dah nilai dia dan sebab dia pun baru masuk kerja dan dia menunjukkan prestasi yang bagus pada mulanya, sepatutnya dia kena maintain. Tapi tidak, dia mengambil keputusan untuk take advantage lah dengan apa yang kita dah bagi dia tu. So benda tu tak bagus untuk yang orang lain dan juga untuk apa, pengajaran kepada staf-staf yang lain. Sepatutnya dia tunjukkan lagi bagus sebenarnya sebab dengan tempoh masa yang dia bekerja tu singkat, kita boleh percaya dekat dia, tapi kepercayaan tu dia take advantage lah kat situ.
So basically, if I understand this correctly, it's an issue of discipline. He's taking advantage of the fact that he got promoted, therefore taking liberties that are not afforded, right? And as a boss, you stuck your neck out for him, right? You gave him a promotion. And this is how he rewards you, right? By coming in late.
And he is not setting a good example to the rest of the team.
Yes, totally.
Because remember, he's just been promoted, right? So you're now at a higher level. Expectation is from self-leadership to leading others.
Yeah.
You must set the example.
Seriously, I speak Malay, but you understand.
I understand your emotion. I appreciate your emotion and involvement. So it's this thing. So boss who gave you the 4, right? It's this thing about, hey, wait a minute, you have an obligation to have discipline. Instead of,
Because I need more, but I'm doing my best.
you can't afford to lose it. So you mean nice. Some results. But at the same time, what we're looking at is we're looking at observed behavior, right? We're looking at observed behavior. The observed behavior is he's been promoted and now he's coming in late and leaving early. How do you set an example by doing that?
Like you mentioned before, that right now it's Gen what? Gen X.
That's right. It's a Gen Y. It's a Gen Y.
They are
Absolutely.
very
Yes.
complex.
Yep.
Complicated. How do you want to manage them? I assume he's still like under 35.
No black.
He can do whatever he wants to do as long as he finish his job. For me, it's okay. I'm very flexible.
He's a Gen Y in the body of a Gen X. He acts like a Gen Y. But you're absolutely right. I mean, and it's going to happen more often than not because someone like Anwar is like, I know my productivity has risen. I know that. I know I'm doing a better job. I'm happy, I'm motivated, etc. But that's not observable. We're talking about observable behaviors, right?
Wait, I want to hear it from Anwar.
Anwar, you're not.
Hafiz Anwar.
I know.
The simple. It's not reason. It's not reason.
He's not rated.
It's not reason for. Maybe itu bukanlah apa punya.
Maybe tak
sebab. Sebab dia punya kalasan pun lebih.
Oda lah yang salah sini.
Kenapa pula wifi tu jadi masalah tak?
Tak, maybe dah cukup.
Sebab sebelum tu dia juga dengan bas. Sebab dengan kereta lalu jalan yang baik. Dulu elok je kan. Cuba jalan.
There's a practical solution.
Yeah, the car is not an excuse.
The car's not an excuse, yeah. Correct.
I mean,
Everyone drives, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets stuck in
the
traffic.
traffic
It
is
cannot be that he's the only one who ever finds traffic.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, Anwar, they use public transport. Yeah, so even they use public transport. Basically,
Yeah, come in and talk, yeah.
so whether they use the one that I speak.
That's okay. So sell your car and get the bus.
Previously, probably Anwar doesn't have a good or healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
He has been working too much.
Too much.
And spending so much for work. He has to might be he can have a better or healthier lifestyle.
But remember, we also have to see this though in the context of the department, in the context of others, right? Others are observing the kid.
Yes.
So, yes, that's great for Anwar, but that's Anwar. What about the rest?
But I don't too much.
The thing about this one is a couple of things. One is that, as mentioned here, Anwar, when they read the text, is like, I have no problems, right? Why do I fill out this sheet? I have a problem. I have no problem. And Anwar is going into that meeting thinking, everything is perfect, high productivity higher, I'm okay. You as a boss, though, have to talk about the others too, right?
Yeah.
And it's an issue that can be seen as an issue because now he's been promoted. Is that favoritism? Clearly, if Anwar can do what the hell he wants to do, yes, it comes across as favoritism. It's perception of favoritism because it's observed, right? Oh, I see Anwar. I'm at work. Where's Anwar? He's not here. He comes in an hour late. Oh, he's leaving now? People know this. They see it, right? No, the boss is not 100% correct either. But you can understand the boss is kind of angry. I've given you a promotion, this is how you reward me? So this is a very easy, this is why we use this one first. This is a very easy role play where the boss comes in and says, Anwar, you're a bad boy. Did any of you do that? Anwar's? Sorry, the boss? Probably over here, yes. Anwar, you are naughty. Anwar, this is not right. Right? Pop, 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 pop. Well, yesterday we had a really good example of how to lead this conversation. And it was Anwar's boss, it was one of your colleagues. He starts out by saying, hey Anwar, how are things going? What's happening in your world? Anwar then, because you had Anwar's scenario, says, Anwar says, oh, I'm super productive, I'm okay, everything's great, everything's great, okay. So now we know what Anwar's thinking, right? And he realizes, oh my gosh, Anwar does not realize he has a problem. How do I introduce the topic of Anwar? Maybe we have an issue here. Help me understand why you are late. Because your productivity is high, etc. But you're coming in later. Why? And then, traffic. Yeah, traffic's, everyone has. Let's bring it back to normal. Everyone has. Everyone has this issue. So how can you explain this? And by the way, your promotion is made you higher. So therefore, you basically have higher responsibilities now. I'm here to basically help you, coach you on these. He had this beautiful way of leading Anwar. So basically Anwar said, yeah, I agree, boss. Okay. Right? So it was a way of saying to Anwar, you're not doing the right thing, but putting it in a way that is not threatening. Because most of the time it starts out with Anwar going into the meeting saying, hey, I'm doing a better job now. Wow, I'm happy. And the boss says, hey Manu, you're a bad boy. The people playing Anwar immediately switch off. Cortisol. I'm stressed out. Do you think Anwar is going to leave that meeting having been hit like that? Is he motivated? Is he going to be productive? He's going to be demotivated. And he's going to mope around. So it's going to get even worse than it was before. So this is a very delicate one that you need as the boss to walk in and to basically figure out where his head is at first, then bring in the topic of there might be a problem here. Help me resolve it. Help me understand it, and help me to resolve it. What do you think you could do? And it becomes Anwar's problem, not the boss's problem about going back and trying to sell flexi time. That's good of you.
Actually, I'm asking my Anwar to collect to buy food at the same time about this management and ask management to make a decision on behalf of they still of me. Even I know I'm just buying time for management to say that actually that cannot be let's say something like that, So not me to my CEO can come up with
Something better.
Yes.
But did you get a commitment out of Anwar that he's going to change his behavior?
Of course.
Okay, good. That's the key. The key is that A, Anwar has to be realizing it, that his behavior is not appropriate for the circumstance, and B, Anwar agrees to change his behavior.
I shifted the further, instead of me to make a decision, ask my CEO to make a decision.
Yeah, but beware, you can only do that so much. Because then you become the boss, which all problems come to because he's going to solve it for us. It's really Anwar's problem to solve. And it's nice of you to have thought further down the road, but it's actually a position where really sometimes you need to lead. And this is an issue.
At the same time, this is about I have a scope at my division, which is I speak in or project job. And then in terms of late on, this depends on HR. It's not in scope of HR. Maybe they need to help with particular.
By the way, and thank you for just reminding me, in your old, in your current, let's put it that way, the ones that you currently have in place, in your job performance evaluations, you have MC days, you have days, did you see? They're no longer in there, right? They're not longer in because they have nothing to do with your performance and nothing to do with your behaviors. Okay? So they're out. But they still come into play because that needs to be accounted for. But it's not part of the job performance review. In our book, it's not part of the job performance review. I've never seen it part of it, and I don't agree that it should be. Right? So, yes, it's still important, but that's the HR function. That's not a job performance function. Okay? That's why it's no longer in there. That's a valid point. It doesn't mean it doesn't go away. You can take as many MCs and all that. It's that discussion is a separate one. Right? I think that makes kind of sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's move through then. Now that you've got the habit of what is a role play, let me then just talk to you about conflict and conflict management. Okay? Conflict exists in all aspects. If you're not in conflict, you are not learning. You learn by managing conflict, by basically being in conflict. So the idea that conflict is bad is not the case. Conflict is necessary. It's necessary. It's particularly necessary to learn. So you should not avoid conflict. It's just an issue of how do you handle conflict? How do you manage conflict? Okay? And basically this is an old model of Thomas Kilvin, but it's very valid. And Thomas Kilvin said there are actually 5 ways of resolving conflict. They are called avoidance, collaboration, compromise, competition, and accommodation. And which one you take as a solution, as an approach, right, depends on the situation. And this is this one here. So basically, if the relationship is important to you, how you relate to that other person. It's Anwar and the boss. They have a very good working relationship. That means that relationship is important. But if Anwar's boss doesn't care about Anwar, doesn't care about the relationship, then it's low. But if they do care about it and want to work together, he is the best employee, so therefore the boss wants to do something higher interaction, higher relationship. Okay? So that's that one axis. This axis here is the axis of how urgent and how important is it. If it's highly urgent and highly important, you don't have the time to negotiate a whole new flex time. Right? That can come later. This is not what this is about. We have to get this solved now. We have to move on. I agree that the Anwar role play it's kind of important, but it's not urgent. It's a priority to solve it, get it done now, but it's not going to kill the department. It's not going to destroy morale. It's not helping morale, but it's not going to destroy it. So therefore, the urgency of it is less. The urgency of Anwar's situation might be less, it might be something in the middle. So urgency, priority, and then how important is the relationship? That's really the two axes. And the first one down here is that basically you don't care about the relationship very much. It's not important to you, and it's not an urgent situation. So therefore, you don't need to enter into conflict. You avoid it. Do you have bosses who avoid conflict? Basically, ignore it. Boss, I have a problem. Have you ever had that happen to you? Right? That's okay if you don't care about the relationship and if it's not important. But if you come to the boss with an issue and a conflict, it's important to you. So they should take notice, right? But avoidance is an acceptable strategy, acceptable approach. If it's not important and the relationship with that person is not important. Another one is that, hey, the relationship is really important, but the urgency or the priority is very low for you. It's not important to you, but it's important to them. So you accommodate. Okay, whatever you want to do. I say this every day. I accommodate my wife a lot. There are many things that she finds important that I don't find important. So you want to do. No, it's not important to me. It's not a conflict. So if you need to do that, go do that. I don't know why you want to do that. Okay, go ahead and do that. Yeah. So that's accommodating. Now, at a higher level, these are things now it's important and it needs to get done. How would you approach the conflict resolution? The first one is you don't really care about the relationship, but it's very important. You basically just tell them, get it done. Anwar, show up on time tomorrow or I fire you. That's competing. Me, I win, you lose. Just do as you're told to do. Don't give me any, I'm not interested in any stories. Right? Competing. So he says, I win, you lose. The ultimate one is over here, collaboration. It's kind of what happened over here a little bit, here a little bit too. Anwar, let's work together to figure out the solution that basically satisfies everyone. We collaborate. We get a win-win. A win-win. And the most odd of it all, the one that's neither fish nor fowl, as we say, is compromising. Compromising is you take some, I take some, pop. Compromising is not the ideal solution. It's not. So when you hear about conflict resolution, let's just compromise. Let's go to a compromise. It's not acceptable. It's rarely acceptable. It's something that you basically have competing judgments and perceptions and all that. Okay, I give a little, you give a little. We at least come to an agreement. Clearly, collaboration is the best. Clearly, avoiding is not helpful. Competing is, on the long term, not helpful. So collaboration is best. Compromise maybe. Accommodating absolutely if it's not important to you. And these two you don't do too much of. But you have to do a bit of everything. You have to know what situation you're in. That's why we ask you to prepare for the meeting. When you go into that meeting, you have to understand what are you willing to compromise on? What are you willing to collaborate on? What are you willing to accommodate? If the boss has a problem, what is that problem? What could that be? If it's that problem, how can I solve it? If we need to do SOPs, how am I going to get that done? How can I get my boss to collaborate? Those are the things that work. All of us have a preferred style. And what we're saying here is, okay, that's fine, but that's not good enough. We don't always use the same tool. I avoid conflict, so therefore I don't address it. That will destroy you. You have to be able to use the different tools, the 5 different approaches, depending on the circumstance. How important is the relationship? How urgent is the solution? Use that as a benchmark. Okay? That is essentially everything you need to know about conflict. 5 different types. Use the type that's appropriate for the situation. And in your notes, you have this in more detail. I'm not going to go through it, but basically this is here for your reference for you too. So basically, clarify the disagreement. Because in Anwar's case, it's really important. Because Anwar walks into the meeting not knowing what the conflict is. He doesn't have any disagreement. He's happy. But but the boss has a dispute. So the boss needs to clarify it. How you clarify it is most important. Establish a common goal. So we need to figure out a solution here on how we're going to do that. Discuss the different options that are available, determine the barriers, agree to the best way forward. So what we normally see in Anwar is that we see some 2s, we see some 3s, we see some 4s. Yesterday we saw a 1. They're ready to fire Anwar. Okay. And what the answer were there was that we're SPAN, we're a regulator, right? We need to be disciplined, we need to run by the rules. And if we start working outside the rules, it affects our discipline, it affects our morale, etc. So that person saw that as very strict. That's okay. That's the way they saw it, right? So there's not just one way of doing things. Each one of the teams came up with a different solution. And that's normal, and that's one. There's not a perfect solution, there is a variety. Okay, so now that you know the 5 different types of conflict, let's look at negotiations. Because this is also, when you go in and you talk, right, try to resolve the conflict, you're going to be negotiating the whole time. It's one big, long negotiation. So negotiation, basically, there are only a few things that you need to know. The first one is the most important, and that's called the BAT. BAT stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. A better way of saying it is Plan B. So you have Plan A, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to negotiate for. That's important, but it's not essential. The essential piece is my Plan B. What if I don't get A? I need B. And the best negotiators in the world spend their time making sure that their Plan B is great. Because therefore, I don't really worry about Plan A. I don't really worry about what I'm going to negotiate for, and I can get anything I want if I'm in that situation. Because I have a strong Plan B. So always have a Plan B. When you go to negotiation, always understand what are you going to do if you do not get an agreement, a negotiated agreement. If this agreement does not come through, what are you going to do? You need to know what you're going to do. If you know that, then you're very, very strong negotiation. Yeah? The only other thing that you also want to know is that if you're Plan A, how far are you willing to go down before you say, no, I walk away? What is what's called your reservation price? How far are you willing to go down? How far are you going to compromise? How far are you going to give in before you say, no, I leave, I don't want it. That is the reserve price. And of course, the seller, so the person who wants something, versus the buyer, the person who's going to take it, basically there's an overlap, and that's what's called the ZOPA. It's a zone of possible agreement. So there's a buyer and a seller, or boss and employee, and there's some sort of a zone of agreement. The zone of agreement for Anwar was possibly Anwar agrees to come in on time and be more efficient with the time. The other side is that Anwar could expect his boss to appreciate his productivity more and not just look at observe time schedules. So that was it. A couple more things on negotiation. The first one is that the boss naturally has what's called strength and authority. Right? They're the boss, so therefore they have authority over you. So what do we do as employees? We use information. So we hold information back. If the boss is using authority, saying, I'm the boss, you do, you're not going to share information with that boss. You're going to hold back. Because that information is strength for you. This is something you can negotiate with. Or you can use time. Build up pressure on the deadline. So now the boss is willing to compromise because there's no time limit. So you use time and information as counterbalances to strength and authority. So as a boss, if you can remove this down, lower this, if more information will come to you, and it will come to you faster. It's not the other way around. A strong boss does not get information. A strong boss does not get things done on time. It's the contrary. Why? Because it's our way of defending this against this. But if we reduce this, like you did over here, reduce this, then this goes up. Then there's all of a sudden, I trust you. You empower me. Okay. I'm willing to give more. I'm willing to share more. And you get a very different atmosphere going because basically this is lower. And so therefore, this becomes more and this does not become an issue. That's a triangle of power in negotiation. So, the cycle, you prepare, that's why we ask you to prepare. You open, that's very important, and we'll spend time on that today. And then you discuss and negotiate, most importantly, once you've negotiated, make sure you understand and agree on the commitments made, so you can have closure when you start the cycle. Right? So prepare, that's why we have those sheets, getting going, that's what we're going to work on today, and then start negotiating. That's about it. I don't want to, this is not all that important. So let me go to John. Same teams, except this time the observer becomes the boss becomes the employee becomes the observer. Okay? And this is John. So take plan B. Role play B. And again, when you prepare as the boss, prepare separate from John. Right? Don't share information until you start negotiating, please. Yeah. Right, so let's kick off again. So, John. How many of you gave John a 1? Anyone? You gave John a 1? You gave John a 1? We need to talk to you. How about a 2? Anyone for 2? 1, 2. Okay. How about a 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about a 4? Anyone 4? It's a nice group, huh? 4s. Okay, so let's talk to these people here. Why a 1? No, I didn't get 1. Why 1?
I'm an observer for this group, observer. So what I see is at the end of the negotiation, both of them didn't agree lah.
Can agree.
Can agree. So the boss
Said, how would you?
give you one.
As punishment.
Yes.
Not agree to agree. Boss, oh
When I see this different scenario, right? So maybe from boss and John, expectation is different.
Yeah.
So
big gap.
Yes,
There's
big
no
gap.
overlap. Yeah.
Baru, jangan banyak cakap.
But so therefore you ended up fighting.
Yeah.
You ended up fighting the whole time. You had your point. Disagree.
Kena balik.
Makes sense. Yeah. And that's a danger with this one. This one's a very delicate one. And if you start with confrontation to begin with, good luck. You end up in a situation you end up with the boss upset, John upset, right? Yet we need John. He's a good, right? He knows what's going on. So John has value. But how do we get him to understand the issues, right? Yeah, tough. How about 4? Why 4? Four? Why 4?
Why you
Trust each other.
Because of the very performance. So supervisor also usually past experience.
Right.
He knows how to handle people like he first asking the complaint whether it is genuine or not. Then I'm going to explain to the supervisor.
Very clearly.
So he satisfied with the answers.
Yeah.
So that's why he made it.
So the way it started with you is that you asked John to clarify, to explain. Customer complaints, yeah. So you asked him to clarify. And look at the difference what happens, right?
So basically, I want to buy in.
Right. You want to get his buy-in first. You want to understand his situation before you can say what your situation is. And did you adjust your situation based on what he told you? Because basically, your boss, right, the big boss has said, you go and you whack John. That's what happened down here, right? I'm just doing what my boss told me to do. I whack him, right? And then John turns around immediately and says, oh, the hell with you. Right? I know my job, so don't come in here with no knowledge and accuse me of things that no one else has accused me of. So you have to understand, so it's much easier. This is a healthier situation. Why? Because you haven't lost John. John's still on board.
Because when I read the storyline, it mentioned that someone possesses a special skill
Right.
in the negotiations.
Right.
Or deal with all suppliers, and then report the safety of years maintain.
Maintain that, yes. So there is value here, right? There is value here. But there are also issues, yeah? There are some issues. So how can you get around those?
And what we call that, yes, of course, I have a complaint, but like observer mentioned, is it genuine?
It's a genuine complaint.
Case basis, not you just mastered the.
It's easy to blast. It's easy to blast, right? Yeah. Blast away. Did any of you also think of that? That maybe those complaints were not genuine?
But in the input, this is genuine case.
It's fine.
What they think.
Just because it's in the case doesn't mean it's right. Right? Remember, you are dealing with many, many stakeholders. These stakeholders are trying to defend their position. This position is money to them, particularly if they're in a water company or a sewer company. It's money. So consequently, they're going to complain about things that may or may not be genuine. Yes, the complaints are registered, true, and there's a file like this. But they're genuine complaints, but are they actual complaints, right? Are they factual? Are they truly complaints, or is this some way of a stakeholder trying to gain an advantage? Because John has caught them out, so therefore they have to counterattack. We don't know. And you're brand new in your job, you haven't hardly had the time to read them, you know that those complaints exist, that's all you know. Right? So is it genuine? That's a very good question. So yeah, it's genuine in the sense that the complaint is documented, but is it authentic? That's it. Authenticity is a complaint authentic? Or is it a made up complaint? Not falsified, but overemphasized.
But at the end of the day, of course, you want to decide which one is good for you. John is what we call it, commenting very well in terms of their goals. So I don't think.
But he's also, but to be fair, he's also a little sloppy, right? He's not following procedures. So if you look at discipline, there might be something issue. And you're looking at customer focus, right? The customer orientation. Maybe there's something there. So those are angles that you can not attack, but you can investigate. You can ask about. This is one where if the boss goes in shouting at John, you will fail. If you go in and ask him questions, you will get someplace where you don't demotivate John, and at the same time you help John understand that these complaints are issues that you have to resolve, right? And also, John starts out pretty arrogant. Yeah? John is like, oh, I'm the hero here. It's a good thing he's coming in, I can teach him. So he starts out at a fairly high level of arrogance. And how do you bring him down, saying, okay, I might not know as much as you do. You're the master content, but I am here as your boss. So there has to be some sort of respect, trust that can build. It's tough when you walk in. This is a good case for VUCA, where basically the boss doesn't know, but the employee knows. How do you make that relationship work? And in this case, it serves best if you're John's boss, if you're humble. Help me understand, John. How did this happen? Help me understand. I'm new here. Help me understand. I look to you with respect. How can we move forward? I have these issues here. What can we do with these? You know, how to interpret these? Yeah.
That is why we come for
Improvement. Yeah. To improve. You have the right attitude. That's the right attitude. Should John continue as a 4 in that attitude? Maybe. But you can also say, John, you have to understand there is pressure on us, right? We have to be disciplined. We have to be customer focused. So we have to take these complaints seriously, and we have to look at these seriously. So maybe it is, you know, if we don't improve, it will drop down. So that's probably where you 5. Is that what you did? Those who got it gave John a 5. Sorry. Those 5 of you gave John a 3. Is that what happened? Yeah. So you know, yes, it's not good, but it's not also in trouble. Yeah, is that what you did? Sorry, I'm putting words in your mouth. Wow. It's exactly what you should not be doing. Do not behave like I just behaved. Sorry. Those that gave 3s. How did you? Why did you have 3? He's good. He's the best. Okay. So basically, the 3 is an indicator that not everything is perfect. We need to work on this. Okay. And the 2s, who gave a 2? Why a 2? Who's a 2? Were you a 2?
I'm just looking at Spen's environment. Spen usually we don't get written complaint about someone. So when we get written complaint, it's a serious matter. That's how I took it.
So it's very serious.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But you have a hotline, right? Somebody operates the hotline, which takes in all of the complaints.
No, I mean complaint about the stuff.
Yeah. Do you never get complained about me? Never?
No, because it says here we get complaints internal and also internal.
Right.
About higher, first is technical lead, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or technical specialists.
Yeah.
But you guys never get complaints?
Not in Spain.
Not in Spain?
But what happens?
See, now my radar is on. You don't get complaints?
We do get complaints about our job scope, but not as to an individual. I'm talking like here in this scenario is to an individual.
Yes.
We don't get like that.
But you get complaints.
We do get.
What do you do with those complaints?
The particular department will take action.
Okay. So you get the complaints at the department level.
Yeah.
But some of you, particularly out in the regions, have direct contacts with water companies, right? And sometimes you have direct contacts with sewage companies, right? Sometimes you have with other people. You never get complaints? Oh, I'm suspicious. I'm worried now. Now you have me worried. My last day of training, I'm worried. Complaints? No complaints. Yeah. I would suspect that there are complaints and that they go a little bit more deeply than just a general, I'm not happy with Span. That they basically come down to, I'm not happy with this deal. I'm not happy with this individual behind the deal. Not. Because if somebody's tough, then they want them removed. If I'm a water company, I would do that. Yes. Oh, I don't like this guy, he's too tough. Let's complain. So, what does it smell like? It doesn't smell good. Right? And that's the thing, is that it's okay to have complaints. On the contrary, we want complaints. Because complaints means we're pushing it, we're being aggressive, we're asserting ourselves, right? Complaints are good that way. It allows us to learn what we're doing right. If we're getting complaints, it means we're doing something right. That's what it tells me. I'm very worried that you basically look at complaints as, oh no, we don't want complaints. It's like, we don't want complaints. We're just man. We're perfect. We're angels. We sprout wings and we fly around. It's okay to have complaints. It's okay to have complaints. Please have complaints. Okay. Now that you've scared me. Let's look at the next piece of information. And this is the tools that we can use, right? Verbal tools are important. Verbal tools are important. Use it here if you want. The most important one, this is a hard one. This is a hard one. When you talk to your employee, or you talk to a third party, or you have an issue, right? There is a conflict. Always use the focus on I. I observe this. I think this. I want this. I. Never use, I think you think this, which is what I just did 2 minutes ago, right? Didn't you all agree that that's what's happening? The first thing that happens when you say that to somebody, I think you're thinking this, right? You basically immediately say, no, I'm not thinking that. How do you know what I'm thinking? How do you know what I believe? How do I know what I did? It doesn't work that way. And so when you approach somebody by trying to bring words in their mouth, like, I think you're thinking this, right? That is, you bring words in their mouth. They basically will shut down. They stop thinking and they say, this is Bordeaux. I am not going to do this. I'm not going to go through with this. So if you want them to think, never put words in their mouth. Number one. So always use the I. I see this. I see it this way. Do you see it the same way? Me, I see it this way. And then you can say, do you see it this way? Instead of saying, I think you're thinking this, right? That's the wrong way. Do you understand the difference? Me to you. Back. As opposed to, I put myself to you. The other one is that don't use others. People in the department have been complaining to you about you. What do they say? The first thing out of their mouths is, who? Who's complaining about you? No, others. Right, yeah. Until you tell me exactly who was complaining about me, I'm not going to tell you. I shut down again. Yes. So never use others. Always use yourself as the example. Find a way to introduce the topic. I understand. I've seen this. I think this. Those are the proper words. The I. Use the I form. Being prepared to questions. If you're talking, it's very hard to listen, right? You can't listen when you're talking. So basically, in order for you to get information, you must ask questions. So talk as little as possible. If you're the boss, you should not be talking more than 30% of the time. Because 70% of the time you're trying to get information. So 30% of the time you're asking questions and you're, you're confirming what you understand. That's the most important. Both in the John case and in the Anwar case, you can solve this case easily by asking Anwar questions, by asking John questions. If you start out by talking, pointing at them, saying you're wrong, I'll tell you why you're wrong, and this is not good for me, you will lose them. And you will get into a situation where the boss is so upset he wants to give him a one. That's not a win-win. Okay? So basically, it's the art of the question. And this comes into the area of what we call coaching. Coaching is about asking questions, the art of asking questions. And these questions lead you, the answers lead you naturally to a solution. And this is a great way of getting the other person to be proactive, to think of ideas, to link those ideas to the knowledge that they have. And the best model that we know of in coaching is called the GROW model, G-R-O-W. There are many coaching models out there. There are many different ways of being certified for coaching. This is by far the most powerful because it's the easiest and it's the most effective. And the GROW model uses these 4 types of questions. The first type of question is called a goal model. What is your objective? Anwar, what are you trying to achieve? John, what can we do to move forward? Where is the objective? What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? So, what do you want to achieve? What benefits will you get? What will happen if you do not succeed? What's your plan B? These are goals. And then once you have the goals, you can also then talk about, well, given those goals, where are we today? That's a reality. Where are we today? What's happening today? What are the challenges today? How can we get over those challenges? If we have these complaints, how can we get over these complaints? What is it that's in these complaints that we can work on? Yeah. So what have you done so far? How far away are you from your goal? What are your major challenges? How can you overcome them? What's holding you back? So now you have the goal. You know what the long term is. You know what the reality of the situation is. There's a gap between the goal and reality. Let's explore different options. What are the things that are open to us in order for you to achieve your goal? What can we do? How can we move forward? What are the things that we can try? Options, options, options. And look at different solutions. And then the last one is, okay, now that you have your goals, you know where you are, you have options to how to close that gap between reality and goal. Do you have the willpower to do that? Do you have the motivation to go forward? And if you do, what is the timeline that you want? When? So W is sometimes also not only will, but also when. When will we do it? Let's get concrete. What are the resources you need? What are the motivations that you need? Those are really the 4 types of questions, the growth type questions. That's all you need to know. It's super simple. It takes literally 3 minutes to explain like I did, and it takes a lifetime to practice. I've been practicing this for years, and I'm still lousy. I wish I was better. And one of my colleagues, network partners, he practices on everyone. Meet somebody on the airplane, and you start grow questioning them. So you can grow question your kids, you can grow question your wife, although she gets tired of that, you can go, you can do all sorts, you can practice with everyone. Practice asking good questions. It's an art form. It takes a lot of practice. It's a very humbling exercise. So how can you, when you get ready for your meeting, prepare some of the questions that you can ask. That's very important. Prepare some of the questions that are bothering you. Not statements, questions. That's a great way to prepare for your meeting. Ask questions. Now, in the meeting, don't try to answer a question with a question. Then you question back. I'll question you back. I'll question you back. And then basically you spend your whole time playing a game. This is not really a game, it's an opening up of information. But if you give an answer, you're also allowed to ask questions. As an employee, ask questions. Ask questions of your boss. Why are we doing this? Why is this important? Help me to understand. What is our reality? How can we work together? Let's do all this, which is kind of like what you were doing over here. Okay? And there are 2 types of questions. There's what's called an open question and a closed question. An open question is that you cannot answer yes or no. So it's things like getting the facts, or improving your perspective, understanding feelings, starting with thoughts, right? So you basically are trying to help that other person think, get their knowledge. And the only way to do that is through open-ended questions. Closed-ended questions, which is the reverse, is you can answer with yes or no. These types of questions you want to ask when you want to confirm something. Am I right to understand that this means this? That this customer complaint came from this person? Is that correct? Yes or no? So you're confirming information. You're clearing up any confusion, and you're eliminating any options in terms of, is it A or is it B? Oh, it's A. Okay, then B is out. Get that? About 80% of your questions should be open-ended, and only about 20% should be about confirming. confirming, yes or no. So if you have an interview or a discussion where it's all yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, you get bored after a while. It's yes, yes, no, yes, yes. It's like, this is not a conversation, it's a monologue. Okay? Any questions on this type of an approach? Questions are so powerful. Scenario C. Type of questions. Let's go to scenario C. Directly to the goal. That's what we like to hear. Still motivated. So now please do the role that you have not played yet. Okay? And please use questions. Use questions. Okay, how are we doing? The noise has gone down. This means that you're finished somehow. You okay? Everyone done? All right? So let's do Farhana. You okay? So Farhana, how many, I'm giving Farhana a 1. Not back there? Hey, our favorite enemies, are they? Okay. How about a 2? Anyone for a 2? A 2? No one? Wow. 3? Everyone. No one a 4, right? Oh. 3. All of you. 3. So wait a minute. Farhana made a mistake. Why give her a 3? Some silence. Everyone makes a mistake sometimes. But who played the boss? Who was Farhana's boss? So your boss. So do you think that Farhana made big mistakes?
Not that
This is a problem. You're not tough enough. No, it's okay, Farhana. Or you're a good boss. It's late in the day, you know, we want to go home. Okay, go ahead. I'll give you a 3. No, fair enough. How about the other bosses? Any other comments from the other bosses? Look into the root cause. Wow. That the procedure is set.
Who makes changes? Is it the concept with the partner? Is it the concept with the partner board? Because the main problem is
So do you think it's a really procedural problem versus a personality and behavior problem?
It's not.
Well, this group is special. I don't know what you guys had for lunch. You constantly come up with really interesting, deep understandings.
When we saw
Miscommunication.
because one is how do you set your staff and the second why this way how do you call that overcome the issue by sending to people you can't solve the issue by sending to people to I don't know why do you send people instead of focus to rectify the mistakes, then he wastes time to teach another
Yeah, there's no doubt Farhana is demotivated, right?
Yeah.
You who play Farhana, and usually when we do Farhana, 80% of the time Farhana says, it's okay, I leave. I'm gonna find another job, right? Very often that's the case. Because, you know, who's right here? Is it Farhana or the boss? What do you think? Who's more right?
most make mistake.
Do you think the boss makes a mistake?
Both sides.
Both sides. I'm the boss. Sorry. Yeah, both sides make a mistake, right? Did the boss, do you feel, overreact? Does that ever happen? Yeah.
I give 3, but with condition because 6 to 7 months is still okay. Before this, Fana did
Was good, yeah?
did a good job, but because of company, boss must understand that
Right.
people must have Fana to settle the issue. So just give Fana one condition, give you 3 because it's 1 year appraisal, right? So you must not make the same mistake and work together with all your colleagues to settle the thing.
It's off, right? Sorry. What was your point? But basically, it's the idea of, we're all entitled to make mistakes. That's okay. Make a mistake once, but not twice, yeah?
Because the thing is the company now damage, right, because of the procedure not making.
But we've had some of your colleagues in the same room say, yes, but we are SPAN. We are regulator. Rules, policies, very important to us. We must follow them. If we don't follow them, no one will. So therefore, we have an extra obligation. And if something really goes wrong at that process level, not only does Farhana need to tell us, but we need to be very disciplined in how we follow up. And that first time that mistake happened, Farhana didn't really tell anyone, right? She was just taking care of it by herself. Right? So that to a boss, remember, trust takes so much time. It took 7, 8 months. We trust Farhana, one mistake, boom. The boom comes down. Send the forces in, figure out what's going on, help her out, make sure that we're not too embarrassed, make sure that Stan is okay still. So there is no doubt the boss kind of overreacted, but at the same time, this is who you are, you're a regulator. Farhana did not follow the processes. Farhana did not go to the boss. She didn't act appropriately to say, we have a problem here. I am covering it. Don't worry about it. I'm taking care of it. She didn't say that. She started taking care of it in her own. So yeah, there is an argument both ways. Right? How do you not motivate Farhana? Because she's going into this meeting pretty demotivated. And so far the boss has overreacted. But you can also understand the boss's side. This is fair. This is not just some other company. You walk the talk. You show the example. You set the example. So this is maybe more serious in this particular case. You can argue both sides. You can argue both sides. So yeah, she started out here. She goes down here. But really, Farhana is at her wit's end now. Because anything she does, she's going to be controlled. Anything, all of her movements, everything she does. What are you doing now? Okay, let me show me the paper. Right? Micromanaged. She's becoming micromanaged. And people do not like to be micromanaged. That's why a lot of times with Farhana, it's like, okay, thanks, boss, bye-bye. Write me whatever you want. Write me anything you want, I'm out of here. That's the danger. This case was specifically written for the case of the boss has to actually step back, take a breath, relax. Okay, now let's talk. Because the boss is super stressed out. The reputation of the department, my reputation. How dare you do this? And the boss, very often in this case, the boss then, as you play it out, the boss jumps in and says, how could you do this? But what we just taught you is to ask questions, right? So while Farhana's boss had to step back and ask Farhana, how do you see things? What's going on? If you do it that way, you start resolving the issue. Farhana is able to express her frustration, she's able to get beyond it, now let's work together. But if you go into this as a boss and saying, I'm upset, I'm mad, this is not good, you're not doing well, you will destroy Farhana. She is gone. And yet we know that she has the capability of working up here because she was doing a decent job. So this is a great way to demotivate people. A great way to keep her motivated and to get her back on board is to ask questions. If you were the boss and you started off by asking questions, the conversation goes so much easier. So much easier, right? But if you don't, then good luck. You've lost her. She says, she's right at that edge. Any other comments on Farhana? Did you try questioning bosses? No, not really. It's okay. You just learned it. So, but please ask questions. Work on that. The importance of questions makes or breaks Farhana, makes or breaks John, makes or breaks my life. So if you are the boss, start by asking questions. If you have doubts, start asking questions to your boss. Questions are very powerful. They're not weaknesses, they're power. Yeah? Okay? Any other points or comments on Farhana? Okay, one last thing before we leave. And I say this every time, because there's a guy back here who's a specialist in this area, so I'm not going to take the shine his light on. But basically, body language is super important. Right? In our conversation that we'll have during our document reviews, about half an hour's worth of conversation, there are 800 messages we're transmitting with just our own body language. Our eyes, our expressions, our posture, our everything about us. And so as a consequence, we as individuals also pick up on that language. And that language is basically 80%. Is it 80% body language and 20% words? It's something along that line.
55% body language.
How much?
55.
55% is body language. So in a conversation that you have with somebody, 55% of that conversation is about your body. You're saying it through your body. I always stand like this, but this means, I'm reserved, right? I'm not listening, right? I'm shut down, right? It's not me, but that's the way it is, right? So basically, how should I say? Think about how you're sitting. Think about how you look. Think about what you're doing and how you work, because that has a big impact on who you are. If you go into a meeting nervous or anxious, they know. The other person knows. And if you're nervous or anxious, it also means, okay, they're desperate. So therefore, I can take advantage of them. So that's really the final bit about that, is start becoming aware of body language and what you can do to improve it, to calm it. And that's why in negotiation, you want your backman, your plan B, because you go into that conversation much more relaxed. You know, if it doesn't work, I'm Farhana, I already have another job, it's okay. Come on, boss, give me help. I'm okay. You can't hurt me. And that's important. And that's why this all fits together. That was all I had to do for you today. Well done. You got done in time. Any other final questions or comments? Good luck. You've been good. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, okay, this is, we look at this for you as span. We look at this year of 2020 as a year of practice. Just like you just practice role playing, you will be practicing KPIs, you'll be practicing behaviors. In behaviors, make sure that you update yourself and you talk to your colleagues, you talk to your boss on a regular basis. Those 7 behaviors matter. So focus on them, talk about them, reassure them, etc., etc. Work on those 7. In terms of KPIs, try to get them set. You'll probably have them by the end of this month, if not next month at the latest. That was your first set. They'll be slightly revised in July. And then July through December is free. Practice time, right? And then as of next year, we go. Full cycle. Okay? So it's nice to have a bit of time. And that the organization is taking time to make sure everyone knows what they're doing, how they're doing it before they become trained. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Well done.